Imagine you are sitting at your desk, right?
Yeah.
And you send this single, really complex prompt to an AI.
Like asking it to generate a detailed quarterly report, maybe.
Exactly. Or, asking it to write a huge chunk of software. Somewhere in the world, just answering that one question evaporated a full bottle of fresh municipal drinking water.
Which is pretty staggering when you really think about it.
It is.
Yeah.
Because we always talk about the cloud or the global economy as if they're these weightless, magical entities just floating above us. But today, we're going to look at what happens when that illusion completely shatters.
Yeah, the physical reality is definitely crashing in.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a really fascinating stack of notes today. It's the July 20, 2026, 6 a.m. news brief from the Daily Tech Reader. And if you just glance at the headlines, it looks like a completely random scatterplot of news.
Oh, totally random on the surface.
Right. You've got an escalating war in the Gulf, local zoning board protests over AI data centers, a rocket launch in India, and then, of all things, the fallout from the World Cup final.
Yeah, and on paper, those events share absolutely no DNA. But there is this massive hidden thread connecting every single one of them.
Which is our core mission today for you listening, finding that thread.
Exactly. We are entering an era of absolute physical constraints. For the last 20 years, we've just operated on this assumption that our digital ambitions, our global supply chains, they were infinitely scalable.
Just build more servers, ship more boxes.
Right. But suddenly, the physical world, whether that's global shipping lanes, your local neighborhood's electricity grid, or even human biology, it's drawing a very hard line. It is setting strict limits on everything we do.
I was reading through the Daily Tech Reader briefing this morning, and I noticed that the most immediate, the highest stakes physical constraint is unfolding right now in the Middle East.
Yeah, it's a massive choke point in the global economy.
And impartially speaking, just looking at the facts on the ground, it is intense and it's expanding rapidly. Today marks the 9th consecutive day of United States strikes on Iran.
And the cycle of retaliation is compounding daily.
Right. In this wider conflict, the brief mentions there have been 17 American military deaths and over 420 American personnel wounded.
Because Iran has responded with new attacks against American bases scattered across Jordan, Kuwait, and Syria.
But the critical piece of this, economically speaking, is what happened on the water.
Strait of Hormuz.
Exactly. 2 massive oil tankers have been damaged and immobilized right inside the strait. And there's a separate vessel that is currently reported on fire near Oman.
What's fascinating here is that we're seeing this global microtrend of choke point power.
Explain that a bit.
Well, approximately 1/5 of the entire world's oil and liquefied natural gas passes through this one narrow waterway. So this conflict has fundamentally evolved from a military operation into a struggle over who controls access to the passage itself.
Okay, let's unpack this for you listening, just to translate what an immobilized tanker in the Strait of Hormuz actually means. Think of this waterway like a single-lane toll booth on a major highway during, say, a hurricane evacuation.
That's a highly accurate way to look at the bottleneck effect.
Right, because if that toll booth jams, the traffic doesn't just stop at the booth. It backs up for hundreds of miles. And panic sets in immediately because everyone needs to get through to survive.
And the dual pressure here from Iranian maritime restrictions and the American naval blockade, it's drastically reducing traffic throughput from both directions. When that coal booth jams, the panic bidding begins.
Which hits your wallet fast. Brent crude oil is already pushing above $90 a barrel. But for you, this doesn't just mean American gasoline is likely going to cross that psychologically painful $4 a gallon threshold very soon.
No, it goes way beyond the gas pump.
It means the plastics in your electronics, the shipping insurance for your online orders, the fertilizer used to grow your groceries, all of it is about to get significantly more expensive. But the briefing also mentions something called spot cargoes and how losing them is severely impacting developing nations like Bangladesh. What exactly is a spot cargo?
A spot cargo is basically an uncontracted shipment of fuel. It's sold to the highest bidder on the open market right on the spot.
Okay, so it's not locked in months in advance.
Exactly. In a normal flowing system, developing nations rely on these shipments from places like Qatar to power their grids. But when the Strait of Hormuz chokes, the total supply of available fuel drops globally.
So everyone scrambles.
Right. Suddenly, incredibly wealthy nations panic and start bidding up the price of whatever spot cargoes are left out on the ocean. A country like Bangladesh simply gets outbid.
Wow. So they just lose out on energy entirely.
The downstream effect is that they lose their scheduled liquefied natural gas deliveries. So they are forced to burn dirtier alternatives, like coal and heavy oil, literally just to keep their hospitals and cities running.
Which wrecks international climate and pollution goals instantly,
Right.
just because one waterway halfway across the world got restricted.
And the briefing notes this is putting immense pressure on policymakers.
It is. Congress is returning to Washington to debate this exact conflict, primarily because the military scope is expanding so rapidly. They are trying to manage airstrikes, base defense, a naval blockade, and tanker incidents all at once.
Which is moving much faster than the publicly stated political objectives.
Right. We're obviously not taking a political side here, but it's a real-time stress test of how long a physical choke point can remain restricted before it triggers a broader economic crisis.
Which brings us to a really fascinating parallel. Because choke points aren't just oceans and international straits.
No, they are not.
There is a massive physical constraint happening right now in your own backyard, and it has to do with that supposedly weightless AI cloud we mentioned earlier.
The protests, right. Over the weekend, the briefing says there were 142 protests across 42 different states targeting artificial intelligence data centers. New York State has even implemented a one-year construction moratorium on these facilities.
Which is a huge deal.
Wait, I need to stop you there.
Yeah.
Because the entire ethos of big tech is, move fast and break things. These are trillion-dollar companies. Microsoft, Apple. They have essentially unlimited capital and a mandate to win the AI race at all costs. How does a local zoning board meeting or a neighborhood protest over noise actually stop a trillion-dollar machine in its tracks?
Because capital cannot rewrite the laws of thermodynamics.
Okay, fair point.
When you asked an AI to perform a task, thousands of specialized computer chips, called GPUs, process that request. Those chips run incredibly hot.
Right, they use a massive amount of energy.
And the cheapest, fastest way to remove that heat and stop the servers from literally melting is to pump millions of gallons of water over cooling towers, evaporating it into the atmosphere.
Which goes back to the water bottle analogy from the start.
Exactly. You can raise billions of dollars on Wall Street, but you cannot instantly manifest grid capacity, and you cannot bypass a town's water treatment facility overnight.
So local communities are realizing that this invisible technology is literally drinking their municipal water supply.
They are realizing that AI is intensely, stubbornly physical. Residents are raising highly tangible concerns. They're looking at soaring electricity prices, massive water consumption, the relentless noise of industrial cooling fans, and endless construction traffic.
So the AI era is hitting a wall of local governance and physical reality.
It is being forced into a highly disciplined phase, because you simply cannot buy local permission as fast as you can buy a server.
And that physical wall is already causing massive ripples on Wall Street. The briefing points out that Apple just surpassed NVIDIA in market capitalization. But wait, NVIDIA makes the chips powering everything in the AI boom. How did it make sense that investors want to step back from the hardware?
It comes down to the limits of what we call the hyperscalers.
The massive cloud providers, right? Like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud.
Right, the ones that build these football field-sized data centers. Investors are realizing that these hyperscalers are facing strict limits on how fast they can build out their infrastructure.
Because of the local pushback.
Exactly. A local community cannot expand a power substation or lay new municipal water pipes quickly enough to match demand. Therefore, Wall Street is starting to favor companies like Apple, which give them exposure to the AI boom but require significantly less direct, massive capital spending on physical infrastructure.
They want software returns, not endless concrete and steel expenses.
Precisely.
Here's where it gets really interesting for the workplace, because this completely shifts the microtrend of AI. We're moving from spectacle to implementation.
Which is a crucial distinction.
Right. For you, sitting at your desk, this means the era of the flashy, general-purpose chatbot is fading. Enterprise companies don't want broad, unconstrained AI agents that hallucinate or confidently give wrong answers.
If the physical computing power costs this much water and electricity, they need reliable, predictable workflows that fit inside existing systems. They need undeniable economic value right now.
Because if you're going to draw industrial amounts of power from the grid, the AI output cannot just be a neat parlor trick. It must be a dependable, tightly controlled task system.
And because local governments can't expand grids fast enough, and the physical world is bottlenecking everything from our tech to our global shipping, trillion-dollar companies are desperately looking for ways to predict and route around these physical limits.
Which is why the space economy is suddenly booming.
Exactly. We are increasingly relying on space to manage these earthly choke points.
The briefing highlights India's Vikram-1 launch by Skyroot Aerospace. This is a private rocket that successfully placed payloads into a 450-kilometer orbit.
But the crucial detail here is the technology. It utilizes 3D printed engine components and solid fuel stages.
Okay, I understand why 3D printing makes things cheaper, but why does solid fuel matter to the average person on the ground?
Well, most traditional rockets use liquid fuel, which is highly volatile. You can't just leave a liquid-fueled rocket sitting on a launch pad indefinitely.
Right, it takes days or weeks of complex, dangerous fueling procedures to get it ready.
Exactly. Solid fuel, however, is stable. A solid fuel rocket can sit in storage, fully loaded, like a fire extinguisher.
Oh, wow, like a fire extinguisher. That's a great way to put it.
When a sudden need arises, you can roll it out and launch it into orbit on incredibly short notice. And India is pushing to grow its national space economy from $8 billion to an astounding $44 billion by 2033, precisely to utilize this rapid launch capability.
Because we need that rapid response for what the briefing calls compound disasters. I'd love for you to explain that term, because looking at the news, it feels like disasters just don't happen in a vacuum anymore.
A compound disaster is when multiple extreme events overlap, magnifying the destructive power of each. And we need these rapidly deployable small satellite networks for operational measurement.
You'd see the whole board at once.
Right. Consider the atmospheric reality outlined in the briefing. Right now, there are 17,000 personnel actively fighting massive fires across the western United States.
Which is huge on its own.
But simultaneously, residual smoke from Canadian wildfires is drifting aggressively over the Great Lakes. And down south, Texas is dealing with the catastrophic aftermath of massive floods.
So they're all happening at once.
Yes. And satellites are the only way we can accurately track shifting fire boundaries, invisible smoke movement, and infrastructure damage across a continent all at once.
And that environmental reality connects directly to human biology. I mean, modern human health used to be viewed as just a matter of, diet or exercise.
Eat your vegetables, go for a run.
Right. But today, biology is entirely dependent on infrastructure. Think of it like a delicate line of dominoes. Let's look at the Texas floods. The briefing notes that hazardous mold can begin growing inside homes within 24 to 48 hours of water exposure.
And the floodwater itself is heavily contaminated with sewage, fuel, and agricultural chemicals.
Exactly. Or consider the smoke over the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
The visible haze might blow away, leading people to think it's safe, but the microscopic fine particles remain suspended in the air.
So local air quality readings from those satellite networks become the only reliable metric we have.
And to protect vulnerable populations, we're having to physically filter the atmosphere using well-fitted N95 or P100 masks or portable HEPA filters indoors.
It's treating the environment like a medical ward.
And this connects right back to the Gulf conflict we started with. When water and electricity infrastructure get attacked in the Middle East, it isn't just an economic problem. It immediately degrades biological health.
It becomes a medical emergency.
Because if the power fails during extreme heat, or if desalinated drinking water stops flowing, basic hospital operations, dialysis, and even just residential cooling become instant life or death crises.
It's part of a growing focus on systems medicine. Systems medicine recognizes that environmental and infrastructure conditions are dictating public health long before a patient ever sets foot inside a clinical setting.
The briefing even notes that in England, they are planning to ban high-caffeine energy drink sales to children. That might seem disconnected, but it actually reflects this exact policy shift.
Recognizing how environmental and systemic inputs like sleep disruption, anxiety, and chemical concentration fundamentally affect our health.
So if machines are doing everything, and these massive global systems are constantly bottlenecking and putting our health at risk, we really have to ask a profound question here. What is the actual value of an individual human being right now?
In the workplace, the answer is shifting rapidly to a concept called provable work.
Provable work. Okay, explain that.
The briefing makes this explicitly clear. A worker who can simply generate code is no longer the most valuable asset in the room because a language model can do that instantly.
Right.
The premium worker is the one who can explain, verify, document, and safely operate that resulting system.
The briefing mentions that AI projects now require pseudocode checkpoints. For those of us who aren't software engineers, what exactly is pseudocode in this context?
Think of pseudocode as a plain English outline of what the AI is about to do before it actually writes the complex technical code. It bridges the gap between human logic and machine execution.
Okay, so it's like a summary.
Exactly. If an autonomous AI agent is running tasks, managers need summaries they can actually read. They need human-readable logs and defined permissions to ensure the machine isn't hallucinating or making dangerous errors.
So the human has to prove the machine isn't lying.
Yes.
But we also have to prove that we aren't the machine ourselves. I mean, the briefing talks about deepfake fraud running rampant.
Yeah, it is a fundamental security crisis right now. Because synthetic generation is so flawless now, independent human verification is required for payments and basic credentialing.
So even if I'm on a video call,
Even if you are looking at someone whose face and voice you perfectly recognize, you have to verify it independently. You have to prove you are human, and you have to prove the work is real.
that is heavy. Flawlessness is becoming cheap and automated, meaning our primary job is just rigorously verifying reality.
It's a huge shift in how we value human input.
But this immense tension, the flawless, infinite synthetic machine versus the fragile, gritty human, it isn't just a workplace issue. It literally just played out on the biggest cultural stage in the world, the World Cup final.
Oh, the contrast there was striking, and
Yeah.
the statistics from the briefing highlight exactly how gritty that reality was.
Spain won its second men's World Cup, right? Defeating Argentina 1-0 after extra time.
Right, the lone goal came from Ferran Torres in the 106th minute of the match.
A completely exhausting, brutal game underneath all the pageantry. It's wild to think that Argentina didn't register a single shot during regulation time. A literal zero-shot performance in a World Cup final.
Unprecedented for a finalist, and Enzo Fernandez was sent off early in extra time with a red card. The match even ended with a physical scuffle on the pitch.
And it was Lionel Messi's likely final World Cup appearance, right? Ended without the repeat championship they desperately wanted.
On the other side, Spain completely dominated the individual awards. Rodri received the Golden Ball, Unai Simon the Golden Glove, and 19-year-old Pau Cubarsí was named the best young player.
And the briefing notes, Kylian Mbappe won the Golden Boot with 10 goals for France in the broader tournament.
Yes, exactly.
So listening to those stats, you picture this incredibly raw, unvarnished human struggle. Men running themselves into the ground for over 100 minutes just trying to get one ball into a net. But the environment around that struggle was completely synthetic.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it perfectly illustrates a cultural microtrend of competition versus presentation.
Which means what exactly?
Well, the match itself was tense, subdued, and full of human error. Yet it was entirely enveloped by FIFA's elaborate, overwhelming commercial machinery.
Right.
The pristine halftime ceremonies, the glossy celebrity performances, the corporate advertisements playing on massive LED screens. The synthetic machinery surrounding the event is threatening to become larger than the event itself.
So what does this all mean? Think about how absurd that contrast is. We spend our workdays building perfect, infinite synthetic AI machines. Yet hundreds of millions of people tuned in to watch exhausted humans fail to score a goal for over an hour and a half.
It's because audiences and workers are both craving the exact same thing.
We are desperately seeking the authentic, flawed human core underneath all this machinery. We want the real thing because flawlessness has become a cheap commodity. The human struggle is now the ultimate premium product.
Because the synthetic presentation is infinite, sure, but the human reality is physically constrained. And as we have explored today, physical constraints are the ultimate reality check on our systems.
Okay, let's do a quick recap of the massive territory we've covered today for you listening.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We started in the Strait of Hormuz, looking at how the bottleneck effect of a military conflict acts like a jammed toll booth, spiking the cost of everything from global fertilizer to shipping insurance.
And causing developing nations to lose out on vital energy.
Right. Then we brought it back to your local neighborhood, explaining the thermodynamics of why the supposedly weightless AI cloud is evaporating municipal water supplies and hitting a wall of local protests.
Which is forcing big tech to pivot from spectacle to actual implementation.
Exactly. Then we looked to the sky, realizing that solid fuel rockets sitting in storage like fire extinguishers are our fastest way to launch satellites and monitor the compound disasters overlapping on Earth.
Because our health is entirely dependent on that infrastructure.
And finally, we ended on the soccer pitch, discovering that in a world of cheap AI perfection, The gritty reality of human struggle is fighting to survive inside a massive commercial machine.
Connecting all these themes leaves us with a lingering question, I think.
Oh, definitely. What's the takeaway here?
Well, if the future of work requires us to meticulously log pseudocode to prove every single human action to an AI system, just to verify our own reality, and if our global entertainment is increasingly swallowed by massive, glossy commercial machinery, will the ultimate luxury of the future simply be an unplugged, unrecorded, entirely undocumented human experience?
Wow. A completely undocumented moment. No server racks, no cooling water required, no pseudocode logs to write, just a human being existing in the physical world.
That might just be the highest premium product there is.
That is something to keep in mind the next time someone tries to sell you on the idea that the cloud is weightless.
Uh-uh.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep questioning the systems running your world, keep looking for the heavy physical reality behind the digital curtain, and we will see you next time.